Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, much drama, much excitement. But before we get into any of that, I am going to thank somebody who has given me the nicest possible present. And I'm going to read it out. This is the card. And it says, Dear Lady C, May the 4th is my birthday. And because, you are a gift to me, I want to honour you today with flowers from your favourite florist. I live in the US and I never miss your show. You are special to me because your courage, resilience, and talent inspire me. I am so glad you are also a follower of Jesus, because that means that one day we will meet in heaven. Well, I'm ever hopeful, not so sure, quite frankly, but one can hope. But for now, I will admire you. The writing is very faint. From this side of eternity. Isn't that sweet? She's given me flowers to celebrate her birthday. I mean, it's wonderful. Thank you. And while we're on the subject of nice things, several people pointed out to me that Kinsey Schofield had said that it was Beatrice who made the comment about Meghan channeling Diana. Well, Ginger Cat says, I remember when you first told us about the yoga comment at the time. That is shortly after the Jubilee. And it was you, Jenny, as you said, who overheard, not Beatrice, as Kinsey said. Thank you very much for that. Because, yes, my information, which I said at the time, was that it was you, Jenny, and not Beatrice. Maybe they both overheard it. And maybe each of them told someone something. So she could be right and I could be right. We could both be right. So wouldn't that be a change? That two people are right at the same time about this bizarre couple and their bizarre antics. Leslie Clark says, Dear Lady C, I'm so proud of King Charles for not allowing Harry to be in the vicinity while he is in our country. Yes, very proud. Well, Leslie Clark, I'm glad you've picked up on the fact that without saying a word, Charles is getting a stern message across. You know, everybody doesn't have to say everything. People can actually do without saying. And the message will ultimately be delivered, especially if people's eyes as well as ears are open. The message couldn't be clearer. Harry has been totally marginalized. Harry is persona non grata. Harry is not to be received and will not be received. And, you know, Charles could very easily have seen Harry if he wanted to. Remember, Harry actually went and saw Charles the afternoon while Beatrice and Edo had been with Charles for much of that morning. I'll tell you how these things work if you haven't figured it out. When people get on well, they make time. When they don't, they don't. Also, if you have a good relationship with somebody and you have official duties to attend to, you can squeeze them in between. You know, if it's really desired to see each other, one will wait and the other will create an opportunity. So Charles could have seen Harry between appointments. He could have squeezed Harry in the way he squeezes an awful lot of people in. He chose not to squeeze Harry in. That should tell you something right there. What Charles has done is very elegant, because not only did he refuse to see Harry, but 2 hours after Harry had to make an announcement to the effect that his father wasn't going to see him, Charles proceeded to announce that William had been appointed Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps, which is the regiment in which Harry served in Afghanistan. Harry would have been made the Colonel-in-Chief had things been different, but things aren't different. My understanding is that all of them, not only William and Catherine, but a whole lot of them, including Charles and Camilla, especially Charles as opposed to Camilla, are fed up to their back teeth with all the nonsense, that the constant leaking of supposed news, which is all fallacious, to Page 6, to the Post, the New York Post, to Vanity Fair, the constant leaking of false information. They are mightily sick of it. I gather as well that people are really fed up with the fact that Harry and Meghan are exploiting the Invictus Games, but they're all mightily relieved sorry, that Meghan is not over here for the Invictus Games. Well, she didn't come for the celebration of the 10th anniversary. So that's something. But evidently, all this nonsense about Charles would love to send a present for Archie for his birthday, but he's really nervous in case it's something Meghan and Harry won't like. It's so inelegant, and they're all fed up to their back teeth about all of it. And as for the leaking of the diktat and the condition that Harry will not see his father except if Camilla isn't there, that also is a source of great annoyance, I am assured, because the fact of the matter is Charles wants Camilla there. And Charles had Camilla there. And if Charles wishes to have Camilla there, Harry is in no position to lay down conditions as to whom his father will and won't see, and will and won't have present when he's seeing him. I gather that they're also very perturbed. Charles is especially perturbed about the fact that Harry has not yet withdrawn the allegation of racism that he and Meghan threw amid scabies made against him and against Catherine. This has not been a snub. This is a declaration of intent. Harry was reduced he arrived on Tuesday, and he was reduced on Tuesday evening to having dinner with Guy Monson. Charles couldn't see Harry. No. Harry went to the Royal Artillery Company, which is actually a very nice venue. I've been there to several events. And Harry was there for an Invictus-related thing in the afternoon, and in the evening, he went to dinner with Guy Monson. Well, Guy Monson's grandmother is somebody I knew 50 and 60 years ago. His first cousin, Nicholas, the present Lord Monson, is an old and dear friend of mine. Guy is the treasurer and trustee of the Invictus Games Foundation. And I'll tell you a little bit of gossip about Guy. He is the chief investment officer of Saracen and Partners, which is now an £18 billion investment fund, which took off gratis his cousin Nicholas, getting him publicity when the fund was worth £10 million. And Nicholas roped in Tim Blackstone, Baroness Blackstone's brother, again, an old chum. I'm sorry, all these old chums. But Tim wrote an amazing piece about Guy and how safe he was. If I remember correctly, half the money was in bonds, the other half was in very conservative funds, which meant they may have made less, but nobody lost anything, which actually is what people with inherited money are all about. They'd sooner not put anything at risk and make a little bit less. And that's how Saracen took off and became the big deal that it is now. Gratis Nicholas, who does PR, organising through Tim to promote his cousin Guy. I'll also tell you a funny little story about their grandmother. Betty Phillips was her name. She was American. She was rich, and she was the wife of the 10th Lord Monson. Nicholas is the 12th Lord Monson. Guy's uncle, Nicholas's father, was the 11th Lord Monson. Betty Phillips had a house in Jamaica, in Montego Bay. And the police went to her once and they said, Mrs. Phillips, you know, because back then she had remarried. She was no longer Lady Monson. She was now Mrs. Phillips. And they said, Mrs. Phillips. And she used to tell this story herself. So it's out from the horse's mouth to my ears, so to speak. They said to her, Mrs. Phillips, you know, we're awfully sorry, but you have to cut down the border on your driveway. She had a driveway. Most people in Jamaica's driveway had a bit of a hedge. And they said, you have to cut it down. She said, oh, but it gives the most beautiful flowers. They said, Mrs. Phillips, it's a ganja hedge. her gardeners had planted ganja as a hedge. And evidently the ganja plant gives very nice flowers. So anyway, that's Guy and Nicholas's grandmother. Well, you may wonder what possible connection Guy Monson would have with Harry and before that William, because he was the treasurer and still is the treasurer, but it came also through William as well, because Guy is friendly with both William and Harry. Sorry. And the connection is really very simple. Guy's mother-in-law, Fortune Grafton, was the mistress of the robes to Queen Elizabeth II. She was an old and dear and treasured friend of Queen Elizabeth II. Mistress of the robes is the senior position for a lady at court. It's like the chief poncho. I have no idea what Aurora is talking about. Sorry. Aurora, come. Aurora, come. Come. Aurora, stop. Come. 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 Aurora, come. Come. Hopefully she's shut up. So, where was I? I'm not even going to edit this out. It shows what life is with dogs. Fortune Grafton was the Duchess of Grafton. The mistress of the robes traditionally was a duchess. Her daughter Olivia married Guy Monson. That's the royal connection. And it's really pretty sad that poor Harry couldn't be housed by any member of his family. No member of his family could dine with him. But he had to have effectively a business meeting with a connection to the charity. It wasn't necessary that he had to have it, but it was as a face saver. Also, it provides a loud and clear message to those who want to listen that Harry is well and truly on the outs with the rest of the family. Now, to those of you who don't know, the Duchess of Grafton was married to the Duke of Grafton. The original Duke of Grafton was one of the bastard sons of Charles II and Barbara Villiers, who became Barbara Palmer by marriage. Then, when he was elevated to the Earl of Castlemaine, she became the Countess of Castlemaine. She was a mistress of Charles II. She had 6 children, 5 of whom he admitted paternity of. The 6th, a daughter, he didn't believe was his, but she forced him to acknowledge paternity. She had all 3 of her sons became dukes. The first one became the Duke of Southampton, and then he succeeded to her dukedom because she, in her own right, became the Duchess of Cleveland, and he became the 2nd Duke of Cleveland. And there is a beautiful portrait of her by Sir Peter Lely, which hangs over the fireplace in the state dining room at Castle Goring, and I am going to ask my techie guy to post it at the end of this section. So you will see she was a great beauty and very glamorous. The second son became the Duke of Grafton, and the third son became the Duke of Northumberland. So, very royally connected. Well, that's Tuesday. On Wednesday, while Charles was at the palace for a Buckhouse garden party, flanked by the Edinburghs, the Gloucesters, and Princess Anne, Harry was across the road 2 miles away at St. Paul's Cathedral. Not one royal. Mickey, console Marty. She's grief-stricken on Harry's behalf. He had Johnny Mercer, the Minister of State for Veteran Affairs, the one who he had to apologize to the court for because he was nobbling him against the orders of the court. He accompanied the Prime Minister's wife. So the message was that the Invictus Games still has official support. Damian Lewis recited the Invictus poem. There was Charles Spencer, and there was Jane Fellows, Diana's brother and sister. There was Mark Dyer, and it was a very dire crowd compared with what was going on at Buckingham Palace. I think the message should be received loud and clear. They're mightily fed up of Harry. They don't want to see Harry. They don't want to have anything to do with Harry. They are still allowing Harry to have the Invictus Games in the hope that Harry will begin to live up to his obligations as a prince as well as a person. So, I hope that answers the question. Because Charles made it absolutely clear that he had no time to see Harry, and that meant he had no desire to see Harry, because had he had the desire to see Harry, Harry could have popped in to Clarence's house while he was getting dressed. Harry could have gone for a nightcap on the Tuesday evening, etc., etc. There were all sorts of possibilities, which I am fully aware of. Charles allows other people to partake of, but not Harry. Julianne Jules says, Nigeria is one of the most dangerous and scamming places on earth. Harry and Meghan going there to be held up as royals is ironic, as they are two of the most scamming grifters on earth. Any thoughts? Well, that's what Bill Simmons said. And Bill Simmons had an awful lot of dealings with them, financially and professionally and commercially. So, since they haven't refuted what Bill Simmons said, and since they haven't sued Bill Simmons, notwithstanding the the fact that Bill Simmons actually accused them of being grifters, and not only ordinary grifters either, but grifters beginning with an F. What are my thoughts? Well, now, according to Meghan, she's 43% Nigerian. Now, I know that the average Nigerian is decent and God-fearing and very honest and hardworking and straightforward. But Nigeria has a well-deserved reputation for being the scam capital of the world. That's right. Meghan is 43% Nigerian, according to her. It looks as if she definitely has Nigerian attributes, doesn't it? Is it ironic, or is it water seeking its own level? Is it the prodigal daughter returning home, cap in hand, not for forgiveness, but for a top-up of money? I leave it up to you to decide what you think it is, because I have my ear to the ground. Well, not mine, literally, everybody else's, who is going to be supplying me with information, and I can't say more than that at this moment, because I'm going to get to the bottom of what's really been going on. Monica Collins says, the Harkles will not address the persecution of gays. There is nothing altruistic about either of them. They don't care. I couldn't agree more. However, if they're media savvy, they're going to say something at some point. Unless, of course, their pockets are so engaged that their mouths have to be zipped up. Let's wait and see what happens. It is in the process of happening. And I am not a fortune teller, and I do not wish to predict, and I'm not going to be jumping any guns. So I hope that answers the question. And Jonna Woolley says, Lady C, just an observation. When you were talking about old-fashioned solutions and detachment of heads from bodies, I believe Harry and Meghan are using an old-fashioned method to gain power over the monarchy and perhaps to replace William. There is definitely something going on with Commonwealth countries and their royal, in quotes, quotation marks, tours to Nigeria and Jamaica. I have no doubt that if not curtailed, they will continue royal tours to other countries within the Commonwealth. If Harry can't lead it, he'll make sure he'll destroy the links for William. Well, let us wait and see how things develop, because the royal family's original game plan was, if Harry's departure could be deemed to be a success, and future royals who are spared to the main dance routine, so to speak, want out, this would have been a good precedent. So one of the reasons why the royal family has not clamped down more firmly on Harry is that they don't want to poison the pond if he can be a success in acceptable ways. Being a patron of the Invictus Games and helping to make it a success is an acceptable way of going about things. Now, yes, the media do swamp the veterans, and I understand that many of the veterans and their families have been very upset at the way things went in Germany, especially. But there is still, it's a mixed bag. It's not all a failure. So if Harry and Meghan could find worthwhile causes to promote that would give the royal family the opportunity to say they're doing well, that is where the royal family and the British establishment would be concerned. That would be a win-win situation. It's not been happening, but cutting them off the way people would like them to be cut off is setting a dangerous precedent in some regards and some respects. The whole thing is deeply mired in conflict, and rarely you win, you lose, you lose, you lose. So I hope that answers the question. If the tour is not a success, and there are hopes in certain quarters that it will be a success, but there are hopes in other quarters that it will be the last of any as opposed to the first of many. Let's see what happens, because Harry and Meghan have never been on a tour that wasn't a failure. The Australian, the Antipodean, Fiji, etc. tour was not the success it was presented as being. The fact that it failed on many fronts was hushed up. With the collusion of the press, the mainstream media, the South African tour, which was a greater success, ended in utter failure. Let's see what happens with this tour, because Invictus in Germany was definitely a PR failure on many levels. But let's wait and see. I think I'm not the only person who's waiting and seeing. I know other people are waiting and seeing. My own feeling is that just as how the Windsors were prevented from doing anything even semi-official, the royals should be preventing Harry, and the government should be preventing Harry from any semi-official involvement, including with the Invictus Games. That's my personal feeling. I think their presence is too mixed a blessing to endow veterans with. YT Mars says, Lady C, greetings. You have been saying for quite some time that the palace would make changes in regards to Harry's standing within the royal family, slowly but surely this year. With William's new appointment, it seems the changes are starting to take shape. Yes, they are. You know, I know people want the punishment to be visible and the whip to be wielded, and they want to hear the lash and thrill to the punishment. That's not how it's done. It's done quietly and silently. It's the way the Medici used to get rid of their opponents, except they did it in a different, silent way. They did it in back alleys. Nowadays, it's done in public view, and nobody sees until it's happened that it's happening. Yulting says, the reckoning is in full swing and the implosion may be imminent. Again, somebody else has noticed that things are afoot. Everybody wants a knockout blow. Not all boxing matches end in a knockout. Many of them end when the decision is made at the end of several rounds, but the winner is still the winner and the loser is still the loser. Pager Ibe says, hi Lady C, I actually tuned in here to write about Nigeria's human rights record regarding homosexuals and transsexuals, and it was the first thing you covered. So much has been written about this trip, but I haven't seen anyone mention anything about Nigeria's policies regarding homosexuals until now. I thought it was fairly common knowledge, but I guess it isn't. I have only mentioned it a couple of places because if people in general are unaware of the homosexual issues in Nigeria, I figured I would get called a racist somehow. Everybody is called a racist nowadays, except those who are. By the way, the penalty for such offences in places is not just death, but death by stoning. A couple of questions. One, why has the mainstream media not reported on this? Most public figures would be disparaged by the media were they to accept an invitation to a country with Nigeria's human rights record. And two, were Harry and Meghan's administrative people aware of Nigeria's policy towards people of those persuasions? And this is YouTube, I'm not going to be repeating the words constantly. When they accepted the invitation to visit. Of course they were aware. Everybody's aware who's even badly informed. They were aware. They don't care. As long as money's involved, they don't care. Just as how Meghan wore those blood diamond earrings without a thought in the world, but made sure she lied about their origins. Yeah. It's all about self-aggrandizement. And why isn't the mainstream media reporting on this? Well, I'll tell you why they're not reporting on it. It's a cause that is upsetting, it's unglamorous, it is sensationalistic, and it doesn't fit in well with their narrative. Their narrative at the moment is because if they are too critical of Meghan and Harry, they're gonna destroy people's interest in the subject of Harry and Meghan. As Robert Jobson told me in 1992 at Sankanta Brasserie on Brompton Road, when I asked him why did the press tell such lies about Diana when they knew they were lies, he said, well, if we spoke the truth, people wouldn't like her, and so really it would be killing the goose that laid the golden egg. There's that element to it. Also, they're going with the narrative. Black is black. I want to get my baby back. Cool. Fabulous. Oh, Meghan's going to meet her family. Meghan's doing an Alex Haley. She's going to have roots. There's a very cynical element to it. It's not about the morality. It's not about the rights and wrongs. It's not about the cause of the disadvantaged or the prejudiced against in Nigeria. It is about keeping Harry and Meghan sufficiently desirable that the mainstream media can continue to bounce them about like golden balls. That's what this is all about. Mary Stroshka says, if silence is collusion, does that apply to Harry and AfricanParks? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Harry stepped down from being the head of AfricanParks, but he's still a member of the governing board. He's claimed to have raised questions, and that's his entire contribution. Well, I have to tell you, if I were involved with a charity or a cause that was so tainted as to have accusations not only of corruption, but of inhumanity, I would immediately resign. And that's what Harry should have done. But you see, AfricanParks is a huge organization that covers several countries in Africa. If I'm not mistaken, it covers 12 countries. It's a position of power. Harry's not giving up a position of power, no matter the ethics or the morality or the suffering of people, especially the indigenous people whose lifestyle is being threatened and whose very lives have not only been threatened but taken. I don't know what that tells you, but it tells me that there is something seriously wrong with Harry's decision-making process. Let's put it that way. He is collusive. According to him, silence is collusion. He is collusive. He remains a part of the organization that faces all these very serious accusations. And he's ignoring it. I'm a prince. Doria, great weed, but I'm a prince. And I don't have to take account for anything. Consequences are for ordinary people, not for great weed, Doria. Not for princes like me. what an education we are being given. Cynthia Mickle says, Dear Lady C, I was a labour and delivery registered nurse for 35 years. I, of course, had many patients who were tiny and looked like they had a basketball taped to their bellies. However, none of them could stoop, squat with knees together while wearing stilettos. May I interject at this point and say, and even without wearing stilettos? There is one obvious reason. When you stoop, squat, and you have a baby in your abdomen, you must do it with your knees open so the baby stroke basketball has some place to go between your knees. I have had patients who were in exceptionally great condition, and those rules still apply. And to those sugars who say Rachel Raglan's mother is a yoga instructor, of course she could do it. Well, my mother is a hairstylist, and I cannot cut hair. My father was a mechanic, but I don't know what a carburetor is. As Joyce Meyer says, sitting in a garage doesn't make you a car. Yes, well, Meghan has unique abilities. I think her spine is sufficiently flexible that she has the unique ability to keep her legs together, her knees glued shut, as the baby is absorbed into her body and bounces out, curving her spine. It had to go somewhere, and Meghan's spine can't be a fixed entity the way yours and mine or Cynthia Mickle's patients would be. Meghan's spine is flexible. Baby had to go somewhere, so that's obviously where it went. And anybody who thinks that this is farcical is entitled to his or her opinion. Wouldn't you say? And on that note, I'll say I'm keeping my ear very close to the ground. I'm waiting for the bongo drums to give me the inside story of what really is going to be going down in Nigeria. And I will see you soon. God bless. Thank you so much. I hope this has been of interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay? Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.